Hello, everybody. This is Joshua Hatton with One Nation Under Whiskey Podcast. I'm joined today, and I'm joined, as always, by my good friend, my business partner, my man of many things, the dear Jason Johnston Yellen.
Thank you. It is a pleasure to be sitting here in person with you in Southern California.
I'm loving this episode because A, it's a surprise episode.
Surprise!
and B, it's with, a couple guys, I would say, are new friends to the podcast, old friends to a dear friend of ours, the dear Johnny Baldray, a.k.a. Whiskey and Donuts.
Mm-hmm.
We've got Carey Hart and Big B here.
Big B? What can you say? When you've covered Big B, it says so much in such a short amount of time.
When you say Big B? Yeah, it's a summation.
He is big. I clearly tower over you, but Big B towers over me.
Yeah, he was a tall dude. And, we talked about it in our last episode, which dropped yesterday with you and Morgan. And again, this is sort of not a surprise, but sort of a special half episode. But what I had mentioned is having these two guys on whom we've never met.
Yeah.
And they're kind of big names. You get a little nervous.
Except for Big B. There's not a lot to that name. It's not a big name.
It's not. You're right. That's a short name. It's just
That's
Big
a
B.
short name.
This is just 4 letters.
Short name for a big man.
There you go. But you get a little nervous at first, and it's not the first time we've had celebrities on. We've had some really nice people on here. Matthew Rhys, Emmy Award-winning actor.
Fwa, fwa, fwa.
Fwa, fwa, fwa. Garth Ennis of The Boys and Preacher and so on. Anyway, the list goes on. But what I really enjoyed was how easy it was to speak with these two gentlemen.
The fact that we get to talk a little bit about their journey as professionals, but then also their whiskey journey, as we're about to do in a moment here. We spent some good time talking about a love of Irish whiskey and how that connects to them as people, puts them in a place.
Yeah.
I love that conversation with everybody, and just like being at the Good Ride event, that again we'll expound upon in this episode, but the Good Ride event attendees were people that I loved getting to know.
Yeah. Yep.
And learn about, and I'm always fascinated by people's palates. And here we were speaking to Carey and Big B about their palates.
Yeah, what they enjoy. Yeah.
Which was really cool. And then they did something that I thought was really classy. As we went through this interview, and we're asking them about their journey, and we're asking them about their charity, and we're asking them about their event, and we're talking about this collaborative bottling that was really cool and a lot of fun. Carey asked us a question about our palates and about our selections. And the way he just turned that interview back around and was curious what we would recommend for him to follow up on. That was cool. And I don't want to give away too much. I know it is only a 30, 35-minute interview, but he wrote down the answers. It wasn't just lip service.
Yeah.
It was classy.
Yeah. He was honestly interested in what we as two whiskey guys who selected the bourbon for this collaborative bottling that we did for their Good Ride charity event, the Tanks for Troops event.
Where the goal is to raise $20,000 for that charity from a single barrel. It's
huge, right? It's huge, and we'll bring that up really quickly after the interview. I want to touch on something there, but in talking with them and drinking that whiskey with them, it was clear that they appreciated the whiskey that we bottled, our palates, because it hit them, and so it was a serious question. It wasn't lip service. I like this bourbon. I really dug it. What else do you guys like?
Yeah.
I thought that was cool.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah. So again, this is you, this is me, this is Carey and Big B. Look at that rhyme that I did.
That was beautiful.
And this was all done over Zoom audio. So the audio is not fantastic, but it's perfectly fine. If you've been on a Zoom before, that's the quality. Like if you've been on a Zoom before, right? That's the quality of audio. So, I want to hand it over to our conversation with them. Is there anything you wanted to add before we do that? Cool. So here we go. You, me, Carey, and Big B, and we'll see you on the other side. So Carey, and I've got to ask this. I want to say, so Carey and Big B, but like, do you always go by Big B, or do you go by other names?
My name is Bryan Mahoney, real name Bryan Mahoney. My parents kind of gave me that name, and it just stuck. So even when I started doing music, the name just stuck. It's BB, but yeah, Big B is what it usually is, or just B, whatever you feel comfortable with. Bryan, I don't care.
All right. Okay, cool.
Well, usually when someone says Bryan, I either owe money or they're a police officer. So I'm always like, oh, this is going to be an awkward moment when they call me by my first name. I'm like, okay, I owe something or something's going on.
It's like a parent calling you by your first and middle name.
Yeah, exactly. You're in trouble. So Carey and Big B, thank you both for joining us. We're really excited to have you on. And I realize, though, when we think about our listenership, there's a chance that some of our listeners may not know who you guys are and may not know about your own personal journeys within, motorcycles and, music with you, Big B, and whiskey as well. And so I wonder if you can just share your own personal stories or a little bit of that, your journey with motorcycles and with music. And then for us, more importantly, with whiskey.
Nice. Well, I'll give you a little quick background on myself. My name's Carey Hart, and most people know me from my day job, which is freestyle motocross. I've been a professional motocross rider for 25 years now. And through my early days as a racer in the late 90s, switched to freestyle full time. And myself and about 7 other guys kind of helped invent and grow the sport of freestyle motocross. And then as kind of life went on, as I got a little older through my motocross career, I then went on to start a series of different businesses. So by Big B and myself both, I own a tattoo shop in Las Vegas. We did a TV series called Inked. So there's a portion of people kind of know us from the tattoo TV show days. And then further on down the line, to tie into what we do now, is we're both brand ambassadors for Indian Motorcycle. So we go to a series of rallies each year, do custom motorcycle builds. And that has been our kind of, at least my adventure on 2 wheels to leading to present day.
Was there just really quickly, was there a rivalry between Inked and Miami Ink?
Yeah. So the funny story about that is so Hart Huntington Tattoo, which I own, is the first tattoo shop in a casino. Okay. So long story short, we pitched the concept with the production company. We shot a pilot. We then went and shopped it around to all the major networks. And at the end of the day, it was A&E and Discovery that was hot to trot. Discovery wanted to own all of the marks. Obviously, I wanted to own the marks because I was doing this as a business. Yeah. We went with A&E. Discovery then fire drill to create Miami Ink, and then it was a race to the marketplace for the first show. Then we became competitors for. We personally did 5 seasons of it. So
came up with the idea, they stole it and then put their version. And then to be tricky, we had everything going, and they'd only been shooting for a week, and they put theirs out a day before ours just so they could first show. And it was terrible, but they made sure they were the first one. How do you like that?
Competition of television.
Yeah.
Man, I didn't know we'd be spilling the tea within the first 5 minutes.
Oh, we don't.
This is excellent, gentlemen.
Yeah, we don't. It's been so long now.
Yeah, this was back in 2004.
Yep.
Gotcha. And so then with you, Big B, talk to us about your musical journey, because I know you were in a band, if I'm not mistaken, with our mutual friend Johnny for a good long while, and you still are. Okay.
Plays with me and does stuff with me. I started in the 2000s, got my first record deal. Toured the world. Ended up having a few songs on the radio. semi-radio hits. And the whole time, this guy would tell me, "Don't quit your day job. Don't quit your day job. He called me the one hit wonder. It did so much. And I think he just needed a friend to stay around. So I kept working through the whole time for him and helping him with the tattoo shops and, race team and everything else. I never quit. So I'd be on tour, do the whole thing. And then I come from a background of V-twins and motorcycles. So once we got a little older, it's not as cool as a 40-something guy jumping up there rapping and singing on stage. It looks a little silly sometimes to me. We still do it, but not to do it full time. The youthfulness of it's gone. So started building motorcycles and it's been cool. I'm glad. I owe him for telling me not to quit my day job.
And maybe not for calling you one hit wonder.
I don't mind that either. As a matter of fact, so I got a big chunk of money at the time. It was the most money I've ever gotten in my life. I went down and bought a brand new Suburban, and the license plate said one hit wonder. One HIT, one DR, one hit wonder.
That's really excellent. Yeah. And so as you were going along, obviously for you, Carey, where you're dealing with motorcycles and clearly for both of you, there's an interest there. How does the whiskey part of that fit in? And, did you just start as a young guy knocking it back like a lot of us, or was there an area of interest there? What's that part of the journey look like?
For me, my last name's Hart, so obviously I have a deep Irish history. My grandfather goes back to my grandfather. My grandfather was very prideful of his Irish heritage. He was a big daily Bushmills guy. When he had a little extra money, he get a bottle of Jameson, but mostly it was Bushmills. To this day, I have a hard time with Bushmills, but I occasionally have a drink of it for him. And it's just my heritage. Like I said, my grandfather, my dad, and my uncles obviously are Irish. My whole family, let's just say, is pretty scrappy. And, and I just kind of gravitated to whiskey at a young age, stealing little sips from my grandpa here and there. And, I've always enjoyed it. I'm not much of I'm not a vodka guy or a gin guy. There's just something about specifically Irish whiskey that I've really kind of gravitated to. And so much so, both me and my wife, that our son's name is Jameson. So
wow. Yeah.
We have a love of Irish whiskey.
There you go. And then obviously for bourbon and obviously the American circles in which you're moving, has that kind of come along for you? Did you find a difficult transition there? Obviously the flavor profiles are somewhat different, but having sweetness in common.
It did. It took me a little while because, again, in your youth, whether it's, monetary issues, whatever, my first experience was Jack Daniels. Not to say Jack Daniels is terrible, but it's a very heavy, syrupy, in my opinion, American bourbon. And I always preferred the cleaner, lighter Irish whiskeys. So like my wife, for example, she loves the peatiness, like the Lafroig, like big, heavy. I compare it to like drinking a campfire. So it did take me a little while, but I also feel that, with age comes experience as well as a little bit more monetary income comes a little bit better quality of whiskey. So if I can afford the better American bourbon, I definitely started to appreciate it more.
Nice.
Yeah, I just wanted more bang for the buck. I started off with beer and I was like, we need some more fuel for this fire. And at a young age, started drinking whiskey and then, finally started getting a taste for it. But at the beginning, I was like, no, what's going to work the fastest? So I don't have a big love-hate relationship with whiskey. I just enjoy it now and way more than beer or anything else. So I really like a good whiskey like that. What's the one right now we've been?
Duneville.
Yeah.
I don't know if I know that.
Yeah, grab the bottle. So funny story. One of my wife's really good friends, and I've become good friends with him. His name's Dallas Green. He's in Alexis on Fire, a big Canadian band. And then he has his solo project called City and Color. Huge whiskey guy. Absolutely loves whiskey. Yeah, here's the label. Beautiful label.
It's not very expensive either, but great whiskey.
So it's really hard to find, but it's not terribly expensive. And our friend Dallas brought a bottle over one night, and again, myself, my wife, and Dallas are whiskey lovers. And me and Dallas mostly polish off the bottle. And, later in the night, you're kind of like, oh, this is really going to hurt tomorrow. You're kind of trying to prepare, hope for the best, plan for the worst. And truthfully, first and foremost, the taste, to me, it's very comparable to like a maybe like a 18-year Jameson. It's really smooth.
Okay.
Though I think it's
super light. Yeah. And I think at the time the bottle only retails for about $50. So it's really, really affordable, really great. I love the label on it. Again, Irish whiskey.
This one was free from Whiskey and Donuts, so thank you. They found it for me.
I've been on the hunt and I can't find it anywhere. There are bottle shops that carry it, but it's just kind of far and few between. So, so that's been kind of my newest favorite whiskey as of lately.
No, that's not true. We have a new one.
Oh yeah,
yeah, there you go.
I have established very expensive tastes. Like my go-to is Middleton.
Okay. Yeah.
That is my all-time favorite.
I love hearing that. I love hearing the love for Irish whiskey. I don't think it gets enough attention. And you hear about, and we talk about it on the podcast quite a bit, where, they say Irish whiskey is coming back. It's going to be big. And there's so many distilleries now being built in Ireland.
Yeah.
But the talk still seems to be around your Jamesons and your Paddies and your Powers of the world. But it's nice to see this other brand coming out and people paying attention to Redbreast now. And it's like Irish whiskey seems to really be coming into its own. So it's nice to, I'm not Irish. I'm just, watching it from the sidelines.
We are.
Here, so.
We thought it was cool at the time to do it. And I'm sure there's some Scottish whiskey being drank. Yeah. Look at the head nod.
Listen, we're all Celtic brothers together. Yeah, and if, they're just across the water doing their best.
You think that, but the last time I was in Ireland, I was in a pub getting drunk and I was like, I'm Irish. He goes, what's your last name? Mahoney goes, you're not Irish. You got an Irish last name. I was like, okay, correct. You win. Yeah, you win. It was a fun. Like, you're not Mahoney. You're a Yankee. You're not Irish. You have an Irish last name. I was like, correct. You are right, I guess.
There is some of that controversy once you're born and raised in America, but come on, it's all blood pouring through our veins. Like,
yeah.
We're all friends here. So
yeah.
So speaking of new favorite whiskeys, I want to talk about the bourbon that we all have in hand. And it's a collaboration that we're doing, with you guys through the Good Ride charity. But before we start nosing and tasting the whiskey, I think a good number of our listeners may be wondering why we're talking to you guys, because we're always talking whiskey all the time. But on rare occasions, we do collaborations. We did a collaboration with a podcast, Hello from the Magic Tavern, and that, we got to talk with comedians on the podcast, which was cool. So here we are collaborating with you on a charitable event. And so before we talk about whiskey, which is the second most important part, let's talk about the most important part, which is your charity. Can you talk about the Good Ride?
Yeah, so it's a project Big B and myself started about 6 years ago. So much like to the story earlier, a big portion of our time is consumed by going to motorcycle events on behalf of Indian Motorcycle. And, that's Sturgis, Daytona, big biking events. And I've always been very interested in starting and doing a charity, through my action sports background. I supported numerous charities through that, but I always want to do kind of something that we could kind of control. And it was like a good, karma piece, let's just say. So as me and Big B started spending more time in the V-twin industry and at events, there's a massive contingent of not only active duty, but veterans that go to these rallies, that love riding American V-twin motorcycles. So that's kind of where the light bulb came on. My wife's dad was a Vietnam vet. Her stepmom also a Vietnam vet. And then my brother-in-law just retired lieutenant colonel in the Air Force. So I didn't know a lot about military prior to dating my wife, which was now 20 years ago. But I have seen over the last 20 years kind of what happens with veterans. The government puts a ton of money into them when they need you, and then they kind of throw you to the wayside when they're done with you. So, through that connection with myself and Big B, we started Good Ride, and we started small. It's basically the sort of the 30,000 foot view of Good Ride is, first and foremost, we raise money for veterans. Yeah. Secondly, we do that through sponsorship as well as doing organized motorcycle rides. So traditionally, we do about 3 rides a year. One being like Sturgis Motorcycle Rally. There's a rally around the Central Coast of California. And then we kind of pick a different city to do a third. And those really, that's kind of the marketing of it. We raise a little bit of money with the entry fee on the events, but the great part about it is we get to have about 20 to 25 veterans get to come out and ride for free with us. And for them, it's just a great distraction. We got about 150 motorcycles. We're on the open road. We have a police escort. We go for a ride through the Black Hills of South Dakota or the Central Coast of California. Nice. And at our end spot, we have a great lunch and kind of talk about the day. So that's kind of how it started. As we got into doing the rides, we wanted to kind of expand and try to do different events, which kind of links to the bourbon of raising a little bit more money. So sort of the shoulder to shoulder of doing the whiskey, the Good Ride whiskey. We do an event with Johnny, that you mentioned earlier, called With Whiskey and Donuts. So Indian Motorcycle gave us 25 motorcycle tanks. We had 24 different artists from America and UK all paint them, donated their time. And right now, currently, we have an auction so that anybody worldwide can purchase these tanks. So as the auction culminates, the last 3 hours of the auction, we do this event at the bike shed here in LA along with Johnny from Whiskey and Donuts, where it's just like a really fun cocktail party. We're doing whiskey and donut pairings, and it's the last 3 hours of the auction. So people can kind of start bidding up the tanks, and it gets to be a little bit of a frenzy. And it's just a really good all around good time. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we're raising money for veterans.
And if you asked me, the real reason was all my friends couldn't go riding motorcycles with us. So I figured if we started a charity, their wives would never say no.
Put that out. It's a little easier horse pass.
Joking, but there's some truth to that. And then also we used to go to all these events, and he'd have to sit, and we'd sit behind a table and sign autographs and stuff. And he's like, there's got to be a better way to reach people and be out there. Let's start riding motorcycles and doing it. It's just a good feeling for two tattooed scumbags to be able to give back so much, to the veteran people and stuff. Pretty cool. You wouldn't think that we do it. So sometimes I'll just be riding and stuff and smile like, yeah, who would have thought that, from being such a knucklehead and blacking out on whiskey when we were young, we're giving back. So it's pretty awesome.
You can tell you both do have Irish lineage because you are both very funny. And I love the fact that I'm just sitting here chuckling away. Like two tattooed scumbags. Your words, Big B, one hit wonder, Carey Hart's words. You guys are brilliant. Well done, chaps. Well done.
Yeah. After 25 years, we're like a yin and yang or whatever.
To be around us.
Ren and Stimpy.
Yeah. To be around us, you have to have a very thick skin.
Yeah.
Josh and I were just reminiscing about Ren and Stimpy this morning as well.
This morning.
How weird is that then, huh? There you go.
Right?
I know we're going to talk about the bourbon in a second, but I heard from Johnny you've also got a beer collaboration going on as well. Listeners of the podcast are big beer and whiskey fans. Do you want to talk a little bit about that beer collaboration you're up to and how that came about?
Yeah, so I have a good friend of mine named John Edney. He was in a band. We were in a band together called OPM. Early 2000s, and we still do stuff. Toured all over Europe, Scotland, everywhere else. Had a couple of songs on the radio too with them. He ended up starting a brewery in Thousand Oaks called Tarantula Hill. Real cool place. They have one side of it makes ice cream, all handmade ice cream. And the brewery, me and him just started going back and forth. And then after we were talking to you guys and different stuff, we're like, why don't we do a beer too? So yeah, we have into April, I think. And I'm not a big beer guy, but he is. So he picked the beer and stuff. So he can tell you about it. It's an IPA.
Whoa.
Okay.
Well, to take a couple of steps back, the partnership with Johnny and doing the beer, it was just that. It's not like we're trying to jump the fence and go hard into, bourbon and whiskey and beer. But again, it's just a great collaboration, to Big B's point. Johnny has an amazing brewery and tasting room. It's really cool in Thousand Oaks, California. And it was just a great opportunity for us to kind of bring our culture of motorcycling to his place. We're going to do a great party. Most of it will be kegged, but there will be a portion of canned beer to be sold. Okay. And the great thing is Johnny's going to give $1 for every pour back to our charity on this collaboration that we did. And yes, I love beer, and I'm definitely an IPA guy. So I don't think Big B's gonna be drinking too much of it.
I go there for the ice cream.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the same thing as, being able, and thank you again for you guys, collaborating with us on this and doing it. But it's the same thing with Johnny from Whiskey and Donuts, John Edney from Tarantula here. We're all friends. So it just makes sense. And to do cross promotion and just do cool stuff and get the names out there. We get the charity out there. Plus we help those guys push it a little bit. Same, the same as doing your podcast or whatever. These are people that may never have known about these things. So it's cool to get them out there and kind of cross promote everything, and everyone works together to move forward.
Well, and a bit like you said a moment ago, which is when you find yourself out on the bikes and you're smiling and you're saying, how the hell did we pull this off? Mm-hmm. This for us is every collaboration. Is what makes this life even more fun is collaborating and working with good people. That's the payoff for what we're all busy doing. So
I don't know if you could see this, but whenever we work with the distillery, we put this distillery directly, we put this logo on our label, which just says the spirit of collaboration. And that's what it's been like for us. We are whiskey lovers first and foremost that want to share the good news about this distillery and that distillery. And the most fun, like the most fun aspect of it is that collaborative experience where you can bring in this person and that person. And it's just, it makes the business aspect of it fun, which is really cool. So it's great to see you guys doing that.
And I think that's what's great, like what you're talking about, we come from a world that, even though there is an element of competition, whether it's, my motocross stuff, his music, now working in V-Twin, customizing motorcycles, I think it's great that we're kind of in, sort of an era right now where it's about building each other up and working together as opposed to whether it's beer, motorcycles, whiskey. You go back 20 years ago and it was like the big five in each category is just battling for footprint. And now you have, boutique companies and, home brewers and different type of people. They're just collaborating and just trying to elevate each other. So I think that's great.
Yep.
Well said.
Beautiful.
Well said. Ready to give this a sip?
Absolutely.
I sure am. Yeah, we started the morning sipping on some bourbons, and now we get to sip on this one, which is we had purchased about 10 casks, and 5 of them were bourbon, 5 of them were rye. And we knew we wanted to do a bourbon with you guys. And Johnny had said you were interested in doing a bourbon. And so we tasted through all of them. They were all, one of the nice things about bourbon is that it's always good, right? It's always good, even from cask to cask to cask. But sometimes one cask will really pop. It'll really shine. And when we were tasting through the 5 of these, this one for us, it told this complete story from nose to palate to finish. It was just a damn good ride.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Whoa.
That pro level right there.
I was wondering why you were looking up your sleeve before you started delivering that, and then you just pulled it out. That was a
I saw him go like this, actually. It wasn't a sleeve, it was a
written on his hand.
Palm of the glass felt like this, right?
Yeah. And it was a good ride. Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned about, with spirits, how, they're all kind of good in their own like little nuances, whatnot. My wife makes wine. She owns a small boutique winery and she harvests everything herself. Makes all the calls in the vineyard, processes everything. And it's crazy that, a couple of bad decisions in the vineyard or a couple of bad decisions in the winery, and it's garbage. Like you can't give it away. It's really finicky. And that's what I do appreciate about whiskey.
Is there no saving it? Like when a wine goes bad, is it like you can't recask it and fix it, or?
No, not really. At a certain level, if you make some bad decisions or have a bad year or whatever the situation may be, make some wrong decisions in the winery, it's done. But then I don't know if this is taboo or not, but what I like to do is I take, which hasn't happened, but when she has like little leftover wine, like maybe, 5 or 6 gallons here or there, I actually distill it and make a little bit of home hooch.
Whoa.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
That is.
So you've still got your site.
Allegedly.
Yeah,
Allegedly. If we can find a deal, that's
allegedly.
What happened. Yeah.
No, we're making hand sanitizer.
Yeah. We mastered how to make hand sanitizer.
Good flavorful hand sanitizer.
I thought you were going to go with red wine vinegar. You're creating cultures down in your shop there.
No, just a little bit of sipping.
We like booze way more than salad. You can see.
The partnership is whiskey and donuts, I suppose.
Yeah.
So does this work for you? When you guys got your nose and your chops around this, what's it doing for you?
I do love it because I love the vanilla hints to it. I love the barrel. That's when I was younger, or a smaller palate for American bourbon. The harshness and that syrupiness is always what kind of steered me away from it. But this is super smooth. It's really clean on the palate. Not a ton of bite on the backside. I love the vanilla smell to it, and you can really taste that barrel in there.
It holds the 101 proof quite well. As you're saying, like there's no harshness, there's no bite to this.
Yeah. I do.
Say that again, Big B?
I said I was happy that it was that the 101 proof.
Nice.
That was
higher.
Oh, no watered down party here.
Yeah, I do like a higher horsepower bourbon or whiskey, but sometimes you have to give up, flavor for the alcohol content. And this is extremely smooth.
Yeah, I'm glad you're talking about the oak as well. That's one of the conversations Josh and I had in a previous episode about bourbon selection, and him talking about it being a bit more grain forward. I prefer a little bit more oak framing, and I think this has that nice balance between the two.
Yeah. I don't love an over oaky, but I do love the oak, the vanilla, the smoothness, how it calms down the alcohol. Absolutely.
We were nervous when we started working with Johnny and you guys we're like, oh, okay, and then he was like, just be honest. And I was like, well, they're going through so much work. And then when we got it, we snuck into that one. We're like, yes. Thank God it's good.
What if they selected a shit cask?
Yeah, could you imagine?
A can of Coca-Cola at it.
Yeah.
It's great with Coke. Coke.
Yeah. I'm an ice guy. I'll do a little ice. I like a cold whiskey and ice. I can't do any mixers. Never have. Just do the night, sip on it, and go. And that's always been me.
Yeah, we had this conversation with Eddie Russell one time where Eddie Russell will put in the ice. He'll pour the whiskey over the ice, and his goal is to drink the whiskey before the ice starts to melt.
That's me.
Look at that. You and Eddie Russell.
You're the same, but way different.
You two could be second generation wild turkey. Who knew?
Yeah.
Who knew? So this is excellent. Yeah, really excellent.
Yeah. So
I grew up thinking that the year number made it better or worse, and that's just not the case. In some whiskey, you learn that it doesn't really matter, because I've had some that are just like high number up there, 24, 18s, and you're like, ugh.
Yeah.
So I had to learn that before, and the price isn't always the key either. You know what I mean? You got to do research on it and know what you want and what you like.
Yeah, we always talk about it in terms of age is not an indication of flavor. It's an indication or quality, but it's an indication of a flavor profile. An old whiskey can never do what a young whiskey does, and vice versa. And for this, we just wanted a nice all-rounder, something that would be pleasing to multiple palates.
Yeah,
with this one.
Absolutely. You guys did it. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, we're so excited to be collaborating with you guys. We really appreciate that. I know we got to get out. I had one quick question for you. It's an Indian-focused question, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
What about Indian? Like, I know fans of Indian. One of my best and oldest friends, Jay Labby, who got into 2 motorcycle accidents on Indians. Pretty rough ones, too. He's still riding. He's still back. He's back on his Indian. Yeah. Like, there seems to be a passion to that brand that is unwavering. Yeah. And I wonder if A, you hold that, and B, where that comes from.
Yeah. For me, myself and Big B, we've grown up on V-twin motorcycles, American V-twin motorcycles. And the thing I love about the Indian brand is, yes, there is the nostalgic piece. And when you really kind of get down into the market, is you have that rivalry with the 2 major American brands. But, what really steered me towards the Indian brand is just the aesthetics of the motorcycle, the rebirth of the brand, the time and energy and money they put into developing, the motors, the chassis, the overall package. I'm through my motocross career, there's 6 to 7 major manufacturers, and I've ridden for 5 of them. And, through my career, is always pursuing, it wasn't about brand loyalty. It was about pursuing the best motorcycle for the track or for freestyle. And, and that's the competitive world of motocross. And when it came to street, I just appreciate, secondary to the brand is just the quality of the motorcycle that they build. And they're just light years ahead in the technology they're putting into it. And I think what's really great is, you hit the nail on the head, maybe people that don't look at motorcycling the way that I do, but has this brand loyalty, it's created such a great competition again, to the point of where I tell people this analogy all the time. If Indian hadn't come back through Polaris, it's like Ford and Chevy. If there was no Chevy, we'd be driving 1989 Ford pickup trucks because there was no competition to make the truck better. So competition is good for everybody, and especially the end all as the consumer. So, but it is really fun, and it's a fun rivalry, whether it's at our good rides or at motorcycle competitions, or just, riding down the road and, bumping into somebody over a burger, that competition of the two brands, and, the checking out of each motorcycle and kind of picking things apart. And, oh, I like what you did there. And, oh, wait, I like what you did on that bike over there. Like, I think it's really healthy.
And the HD guys are always so snotty, but it's good. So you pull up to an event and there's thousands and thousands of bikes that look all the same. And then a guy pulls up on an Indian, and you're like, all right, me and you are, you instantly drawn each other and become friends, talking different stuff. And I think with Indian, the great thing is it's back to motorcycles. It's not back to T-shirts and leather wallets. You know what I mean? That's what HD started selling and making it such a thing. Indy wanted to build a motorcycle that was a superior motorcycle that people enjoyed riding and go after a different crowd. It wasn't the old school angry biker guy and stuff, and get people out to ride motorcycles, and they're doing it. Females, everyone's starting to get on bikes again, and it's cool. What do you think? Yeah.
Are you? I think he's got a buzz. Start jabbing
tears. There are tears coming out of Big B's eyes right now. Like, he's getting an emotional over there.
For everything you've done for me forever.
So I do have to ask you a quick question. I know I have to go, but a quick question, and this is probably extremely hard, and it might be a loaded question, but with your experience in whiskey and American bourbon, do you have a favorite, or do you have a top 3? I'm sure it's probably hard to say a favorite, but like, what is your top 3?
Oh, wow. We may have 2 different answers here, but Jason, you want to go ahead?
For whiskey writ large, or for American bourbon?
At large.
Oh, gosh.
Like, if you were having your best friends over and the most important people in the world, and you had to pull 3 bottles, what would it be?
I know my answers straight away. So Jason, you go ahead.
No, go for it. I'll both fill in the gaps and think of answers that aren't yours.
Pour number 1 is the 21-year-old Lagavulin, bottled in 2007. I don't think the world has produced a more perfect spirit, a more perfect drinking beverage, period. Enough said. Right. Number 2 would be the Octomore 4.2, which is known as Comus, which is a heavily peated Bruichladdich matured in Sauterne casks. A Sauterne is my favorite type of cask to mature whiskey in. And then 3, and this is where the bourbon comes in, is going to be a Wild Turkey. It's colloquially known as cheesy gold foil, because I'll show it to you. Hold on. Okay. Because the packaging is cheesy gold foil like packaging, and this was released in the late 80s, early 90s.
That screams 80s.
No one bought it. No one gave a shit about bourbon back then. So these bottles were just sitting on store shelves for literally decades, and now these are hen's teeth. But
can't get them.
I would say this is easily the best bourbon I've ever had in my life, hands down. Yep.
That's a hell of a threesome. I would happily drink all three of those with you anytime and have. So cheers. Yeah, my number one is your number one, and seriously for Alicia, the Lagavulin 21 from 2007 is out of this world. Absolutely out of this world.
If she loves peated stuff, she that would send her to heaven. Yep.
And Joshua and I are not. We are old whiskey lovers, but we're not lovers of old whiskey. And so we don't go to 21 just because it's 21. It's just a damn good whiskey. Number two for me, actually, if you talk about people coming over to my house, Compass Box do a bottling called Glasgow Blend. Obviously, I grew up just near Glasgow. And so having the Glasgow Blend that I can pour for people, and it's got just enough peated kind of component in it to be interested, it's $35 a bottle. Cheap as chips, 43% alcohol, but not chill filtered. Absolutely fantastic. And then I would pull a Lechig. And so just off camera here, I've got a floor to ceiling shelf of Lechigs, which is a Highland peated whiskey on the Mull, the Isle of Mull. And it's crack. It can be kind of dirty. You talk about getting your hands into motorcycles and grease and grime and oily rags. That's Lechig in a nutshell. So if you guys came over, I'd be pouring a Lechig for you.
All right. Well, I over here, I have my voice memo going, so I'm gonna have to track down those 4 to 5 bottles.
Yes. Yeah. And we can help you. We can keep eyes open for you as well. But yeah, Glasgow Blend, you'll find cheapest chips everywhere. So no worries on that one for you.
No.
Awesome. Well, thanks for your time, chaps. It was a pleasure lifting a glass with you, especially of good rye bourbon.
Well, thank you for having a couple of rookies on your show. We really, really appreciate it. And more than anything, thank you so much for supporting our little charity. We hope to do many more projects, fun, authentic, exciting projects, and we just can't thank you enough.
For those of you that enjoy the conversation, I hope what you'll do now is maybe listen in to yesterday's episode. Our guest on that one was Ewan Morgan, but for part of that episode, we recapped our experience of that charitable event, which really was fantastic and felt like a wonderful return to normal times.
And I'll tell you, in being there, I saw the hard work that Carey was putting in person.
Yeah.
So was Big B. Johnny of Whiskey and Donuts and his wife Erica were busting their humps, slicing donuts, getting them into display, putting them on tables, right? The women who were working the front door were absolutely wonderful as well.
Yeah.
Spoke to them a lot. They were busting their humps. We were pouring at tables. Everybody had the Tanks for Troops charity front and center in their minds.
Yep.
It was great. It was a real honor to be a part of it and to participate with real, genuine folk round about us.
There you go. Expertly put. Well done. For those of you that don't know, Jason and I are the owners of a company called J&J Spirits, and we release whiskeys under the Single Cask Nation label. And this bottling that we did for Tanks for Troops, for Good Ride, is exclusive to that charitable event.
Yep.
And a good number of the bottles were sold on that night. However, as I understand it, Carey Hart is going to be posting some information about how you can purchase this bottle through Instagram and maybe on his website, I think.
Yeah, the word on this will be spread far and wide for people who follow the Good Ride, for people who follow Carey, for people who follow Big B. Make sure you go give them a follow.
Yes.
So you're not missing out on information.
Exactly. Give them a follow. Make sure you're not missing out on any information. And this is a charitable bottling. This is Tanks for Troops. We're trying to raise $20,000 for the U.S. troops, our American troops. So it is a $200 bottle, but understand that money is going to a very good cause. You're not only helping out troops, but you're getting a bottle of damn tasty whiskey that's perfect for sharing.
That pairs beautifully with a maple bacon bar.
Or a vegan maple bacon bar. Jason, I think that's you, and I think that's me, and we'll get out of here. Thanks again to Big B and to Carey. It was a wonderful time.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, and we've given a lot of thanks going around this. I also want to take a second to say thanks to Elijah, who came down from the state of Washington, helped us with the pour, blitzed it, and disappeared in the dead of night. We didn't even get to hug him goodbye, knuckle bump him goodbye, elbow bump him. We got none of those things. He disappeared off into the night. But he was a huge, huge help.
He was incredible.
Great lad.
Yeah, he was incredible. And again, to Johnny and to Erica, they put in, having run our own festivals in 3 major cities over 6 years, we know what it's like to run a successful event. That shit ain't easy. So kudos to them.
And finally, as we said in yesterday's episode, season 6, episode 4, thanks to Greg and Alphonse from the Water of Life film, who came down and helped us pour that collaborative bottling. There's another collaboration.
Right.
That's what this industry is all about. If you're not collaborating, you're not having nearly as much fun as you could be.
100%.
I'd almost say as much as you could Big B.
What did you just say? And always say as much as you could Big B.
So you're not having as much fun as you could be, and I went with you're not having as much fun as you could Big B.
Oh, I see what you did. You're a smart man. All right, dropping mics. Cheers, everybody.